Activated Mornings on WEFM 99.9 is on now. WhatsApp us or call us at 457-9997.
We are back, and this is the final talk segment of the day, the final talk segment of the morning of the day, and this is the one that is called Talk to Us. So, Nicole, there has, if you notice that we've changed, the people aren't here, so we're just gonna have a little open forum talk to us here this morning. All right, so remember the number to call us if you want to contribute, 457-9997. That is our landline number. That is also our WhatsApp number. And here you have myself, Dianna Cain. Well, I'm supposed to introduce myself last. You have Nicole, Joseph Chin, Dr. Gerald Thompson, and I, Dianna Cain. And we have a caller. So... hello, good morning.
Good morning, ladies.
Morning.
Dr. Thompson is there still?
Yes, he is.
Yeah, this is a question to Dr. Thompson. Grand Rising, Dr. Thompson.
How are you?
Talking about marijuana, there was a guest on this program one time, and I was trying to find out how many plants a person can how many marijuana plants you can plant in a yard, because some people is saying it's 2. Some is saying 4, some saying 6. Some say you could plant how much you want. But I understand it's for Jamaica. It wasn't for St. Vincent.
Yes.
And I asked that question already, and up to now I can't get that question, because everywhere, as I call this morning, I saw it too. That everywhere you go in St. Vincent and Grenadines, you see marijuana plant all over the place. And nobody getting locked up, and it is legal, you know? So how many trees a person supposed to plant? Yes. That's the question I want to ask.
Let me make this clear. Certain countries take different approaches. We have not just decriminalized hair for local persons, but our goal is really one of export, whether regionally or internationally. Are you still on the line there?
Yeah. It's just another call.
Yes.
Now, we have a very relaxed licensing system. Any traditional cultivator, any Rastafari who's a traditional cultivator, can obtain a license to do cultivation, whether it's small amounts or it's of a certain size, in terms of how much land they're looking to cultivate, but they should have a license. So we haven't taken the approach where everybody don't bother with a license, just do a few plants. We haven't taken that approach. The vast majority of persons that you may see will have some form of a license, and the license comes free of charge. There's no charge for the license, but there's an application fee that costs you $100. Yes, sir? Now, the industry itself has not grown to the extent that we are truly exporting internationally. But there's another form of export where visitors who come here, that they essentially are like exporting. So instead of shipping it over to somebody, the visitor comes here and they're basically able to obtain it from dispensaries and so forth and pharmacies. And that's considered still a form of export. And then medical patients here are able to get to. But because of the need for quality, the rights of knowing what you're getting, right? We basically have a system that we just don't allow you just to plant and say you have this type of product. You really have to know exactly what you're doing, have some training, get a license, and at the same time, we will monitor the process. And so, in addition to that.
Yes, yes. So, in other words, nobody is supposed to plant marijuana in the yard then, because
Persons are not really permitted to plant marijuana, but we also have a secondary process of what we call tolerance. And I don't want to give the go ahead with all right, but basically we have relaxed that particular aspect. We haven't gone in that direction of like some other country. Like in Trinidad, they say, Trinidad, you can't cultivate, in order to trade or export or anything like that. They haven't passed any legislation, but they've allowed for 4 plants in the backyard. We basically haven't gone in that direction of doing it that way. We've formally established a licensing system, and we encourage persons to get a license. A very simple process. You come out to the MCA at NMS, and just a simple process, go through the process and get license. And that, I think, works a lot better. Once you have an ID card, you have an ID card and you have your certificate of license, and so then any possibility of the police or so make any contact with you is significantly reduced.
Because some people, yes, I understand, but some people, I never heard from the doctor, but I hear some people saying that doctor is saying it's good to boil, but the good to boil and the having THC, the medical marijuana and the local marijuana is the recreational marijuana having the same THC, one having more and one having less. But which one is better? And you think it's good to boil? Because I don't really smoke marijuana. I don't deal with it.
Yes, and this comes now. Believe it or not, in the plant, this substance called THC is in what we call the inactive state, and only if you heat it to a certain temperature will the THC somewhat break free. Right now, boiling does break it to some degree, but and it can still be effective for certain conditions. But let me say, when you take cannabis or THC into your mouth and it goes down into your intestines, your stomach, I want you to know that it takes about an hour before that particular cannabis circulates back to get back into your bloodstream. And we have been worried sometimes that persons who are taking it by mouth, right, whether in the form of a tablet or whether taking it after boiling or whatever the case might be, that they would say, boy, after half an hour, I can't feel any effect. I can't feel anything. So guess what they might do? They might take some more. They might take double the amount. But then after that hour, they've now got twice the amount in their system, and it could affect them in a way that they did not expect. Now, on the other hand, if you vape or you smoke or you take it under your tongue, it comes it acts very quickly, and you could see the effect. The effect is like 3, 4, 5 minutes, and you can see the effect. And so there's less dose of persons taking an overdose. So we even though our laws allow for things like brownies and so forth, we haven't been encouraging these things, because some people who are new to cannabis may have a tendency of taking not just one brownie, but 2 and 3 and 4, because they didn't feel the effect of the first and the second brownie. So I as a medical doctor, I'm giving you this particular caution that yes, boiling and cooking and all this can activate the cannabis in itself, but we want persons to take it in a particular type of dosing, and so that is prescribed and is reasonable. And of course, we also respect the fact that the Rastafari know a lot more about this, and they know these things. But the normal person, like you, don't sound like a Rastafari. You sound like somebody who's new to this. And I would caution you in some way to pick up a little bit more information, like you're asking right now.
Yes. But sometimes the question goes again. The last question goes again.
Yeah.
Then why God put the THC in it, and if it is harmful, why that was in the plant? Because God make it.
No, I'm not saying that the THC is harmful. I am saying to you that you may find that the right amount of a reasonable amount of cannabis for certain conditions, whether it's anxiety, whether it's for sleep, whether it's for pain, will work. But for those persons who may take too much, in the same way that some persons may take too much alcohol. Have you seen someone start drinking on a bottle of strong rum and so forth, and what happens to them? Well, I'm saying you and I would stay away from only take small amounts of strong rum, let's say, but there's some persons who may then take too much. And also, if somebody's very young, somebody's 11, 12 years, we want to discourage them from using it because sometimes their brain cannot tolerate it. Some people can't tolerate it in the same way some people can't tolerate alcohol and behave funny. Some persons are like that too in relation to cannabis. But the vast majority of adults using it for medicinal purposes is legal here in St. Vincent Grenadines if you go through the right channel. And I will encourage you to get an ID card and those sort of things. But
Thank you, Dr. Thompson.
Good question.
Explanation.
Yeah, good questions. Good questions. I know. I tell you something. I would love. As a matter of fact, you know what? Wednesday night. Listen, Wednesday night. I'm gonna come back at this. I'm gonna have a couple of persons on who may challenge me as well on top of this. So let's make a discussion of this. And so listen, WEFM Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. and we will have some further discussion on this.
Very informative. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Dr. Thompson.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
You're welcome. I wanna jump in here, Doc, and it's important, really. I think I'm a big proponent. I love the idea of educating the public and sensitization and advocacy. I love to check those boxes all the time.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter with what specific thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
My question or my desire is exactly what you said you're going to do on Wednesday. Really have a series of educational events because, as you said, the dosage is so specific to the person, their chemistry, the chemistry of the contents of the actual mixture that is being done, and particularly it has to have that semblance of a prescriptive, right? And that's simply because, again, tolerance. So in everything, yes, there's access, there's freedom, there are all the processes of getting licensed and that kind of thing. Yes. But there will still be people who I feel, and I'm sure you will agree, would be still doing it kind of like apprehensively. I want to do this, but I don't want to do it. And the fallout from what might happen in terms of their fears, we want to make sure that, it's addressed. So I feel like two things. Cannabis is a great event for this to happen. Yeah. But yes, the sensitization and the education is so important, especially for people at the grassroots level.
Yes, I want to agree with you. And I want you to consider three things. I want you to consider the Rastafari, who would consider that it is their religious right and part of their sacrament to be able to use the cannabis. And in our laws, we allow that. Yes, and so in the synagogues, in a place of worship, it is permitted. And then, as you mentioned, there are persons who, what we call, are novices, are naive or new to cannabis. And they have to be cautioned not to overdo it, not to use excessively, and so forth. And then in the middle, I want to tell you about people who have tried all kind of medications. They've tried some of the strongest pain medication. I'm telling you, I was a doctor in the United States, and I had a lot of HIV patients who wasn't eating. The cannabis stimulated their appetite, and it's now recognized as. But I've also had patients with pain, what we call very strange type of pain, phantom pain. We don't know what the cause of the pain is, but their nervous system just allows them to have pain. And guess what? The cannabis works. And then there are patients who have had what we call anxiety, and patients with sleep disorders. Do you know the amount of people who have sleep disorders? About 20% of the global population, I'm talking about over 1 billion people, have sleep disorders. They can't go to sleep at night and so forth. And the cannabis is something that helps. But in the past, before legalization, anybody who taking cannabis for sleep, or anybody taking cannabis for anxiety or depression, or to stimulate their appetite, was considered to be taking it illegally. And anybody who had strange type of pain, right, we call phantom pain, doctors dismiss them. So now we've brought those people in to this alternative type of therapy. And in all three cases, in the case of the Rastafari, we know that they basically know a lot more about it, you know. But the new patients or young kids who are trying to try it out and so forth, just like you're going to try alcohol, or they're going to try experimenting with, I got to say this word, sex. You know, we want to discourage them and so forth and educate them in this regard. And the same we want to encourage them about alcohol. There's not enough education on alcohol. And there's usually not enough education about you know, premature sex. You know, I remember I used to be part of the Planned Parenthood Association and so forth. We used to give out condoms and all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure there will be religious person who will say, forget about that. You should not fornicate. And so, but in understanding how young people are today, and so we have to also respect the fact that it does happen, and we see teenage pregnancy and this and that. But I'm bringing these things up to say that in controlling the industry, we are not looking to throw people in jail for small possession anymore, or the possession of 1 or 2 spliff. You know what I mean? And at the same time, we're still trying to make sure our kids are protected to a degree, even though they are going to try it in very strange places that we are not necessarily able to monitor them effectively.
You were talking about novices and people being naive to how to properly use the marijuana. Do you, I don't know if from the Medicinal Cannabis Authority or from Ministry of Health or anybody, do you have any plans to take this information to children? I know when it comes to sensitizing children on things like sex, drugs, and alcohol, some persons get really skeptical, but the reality is they are using these things, they are doing these things, and instead of telling them don't do it, when you know they are going to do it, I think that we should educate them on how to use it. Because like you said, if you're going to get into marijuana use, there are certain things that you need to know. It's not just about picking up the herb and starting to smoke it just like that. There's a lot that you need to know about how much you need to consume at force and things like that, especially as you mentioned with the edibles, you know. So
I want to be clear here in St. Vincent, we have not legalized cannabis for recreational purposes. We do know that it is used in that way, but
to educate them on the laws as well.
Educate them on the laws, but the laws also say that kids under a particular age should not use alcohol. And in terms of age of consent, persons are not supposed to engage in certain type of activities. I tell you, my education is also on carbohydrate food and also ill discipline, honoring your mother and your father and so forth, you know, respecting adults. I like all those particular type of things too. Now, we have to step up and continue the process of educating our kids on all these areas, on violence, violence. About 6-8 months ago, last year, we were talking about the murder rate and all them kind of things. We are talking about that less today, but we have to continue talking about violence and settling disputes and all them kind of thing. You know what I mean? In a particular way. But I'm agreeing with you. Education has to continue, and what is needed is in the schools the help of the counselors in the school, the teachers, because when a kid is going to do it, they ain't coming to the MCA. They're not going to come out to the MCA. They may well, unfortunately, go to a friend. So we have to have, individuals who are kids who are a little more educated, could give probably, but the counselors in schools as well as parents, we need to educate them more.
All right. So
absolutely. Okay, go ahead, Dianna, because I have another question on education as well.
If you can finish up, Nicole, and
right. So and so the education, that's what I'm talking about. But you see, it has to be done strategically, and it has to be a system, so that so we don't miss any populations, because adults also need to be educated, because a parent needs to be educated, but more than that, a caregiver, a teacher, a counselor, and an adult who is experiencing the chronic pain or the sleep disorders. And so there's so many categories. So there's, again, as I said, there's an urgency for grassroots, particularly because what you find is that sometimes that community, that population still might not have the urgency of reading, going to Google, asking a question. Some of them might be shy about how to ask this question. So I think systematically there's a great opportunity here to create a really strong education format or campaign that will then allow what we are trying to achieve and avoid both at the same time, Doc. Because it's great to have the access to a product that is going to make sure that, particularly from the religious and socio-cultural perspectives, going to make sure that no population is left out or, considered like we the baddies kind of thing. But then you have to also think about those who really have not been using this product as a way of life or anything like that, and they're coming in new and they don't understand. And I think that's the part. And even people with disabilities, we have to think about how we're going to give them that education or that information. People who are blind, people who are visually impaired or audio impaired. And so we want to make sure that if this is the way we're going to encourage people to use something, that we do not forget who might be that unassuming user. So that's just my throw in there. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. You've hit a nail on the head, but we have also moved in many different directions. And yes, the dangers and so, but I tell you something, at Cannabis, we're going to have 2 doctors who are going to be talking about the experience and really how do you get a prescription and so forth. 2 local doctors who are engaged in prescribing and so forth. And I think that's going to be great. We are going to hear a little more about the United States rescheduling, because there can be opportunities and yet disadvantages. I can tell you, you may start to see tons of stuff coming down in barrels and so forth. We got to be careful about that and the dangers of that. But if the United States is going to reschedule it, it tells people there might be something in this. Yes, Sam? And the stigma that we've had over the years in relation to cannabis can start then to decrease. I've had an opportunity to go over to Barbados and train doctors in Barbados how to prescribe. St. Vincent is considered as one of the leaders in the Caribbean. Some people say, oh, but where are the benefits and all that? I'm telling you that, the industry is now quite mature. And we have built up a system that St. Vincent is seen as a place of quality. And even though we do have to regulate, and continue the regulation. I'm really happy that we have a great relationship with the police. We have a great relationship with the Rastafari and Nyabingi, with other TCs. We have a great relationship with the business, and I think that we are doing fairly okay. It's just now that I'm hoping that we will start to see this take off. But one last thing is that I am so happy that our traditional cultivators also produce a ton of food. And even though you mentioned, Dianna, about infused product, they're producing food that is safe, that's high quality, that is separate and distinct from cannabis. So they're making that dollar through those means too. And I think that has helped in the industry, so that as we look forward to trade and export and so forth, at least they basically are contributing in other ways to our country and our society. And I really want to express an appreciation to them.
All right. And with that, it is time to head out of our talk segment for today and head straight into community dateline. So see you when we come back to sign out.
Yeah.